The Legend of Zelda series has some iconic characters. The main trio of Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf will often come to mind immediately. And you have favorites like Impa, Tingle, and others who have appeared alongside them. But every now and then you come across someone who only showed up once, never again, and you wonder, what happened to that character? So for this video, I want to go over some of these characters and what makes them so unique. There will also be some bosses in the mix. My rules for this video are that characters need to have some significance to the gameplay or story. So I won't cover characters like the Know-It-All brothers from Ocarina of Time, or Breath of the Wild's many side characters. The character can only appear in one game in any capacity. References as a trophy or a spirit in Super Smash Bros. Series, for example, will disqualify them. But name-dropping a character doesn't count as a physical appearance. There are some exceptions I'll go over, but for the most part, I'm talking about characters that Nintendo, and probably you as a player, have completely forgotten about. I'm narrowing things down to one character per game, including spin-off titles, talking about a character that I think is worth talking about, and has the best chance for Nintendo to bring back. I'm going from the very beginning up to Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. After that point, I feel like the games are a little bit too recent to confidently say that a character from them will never return again. Tears of the Kingdom's story is still expanding with the upcoming release of Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, and Echoes of Wisdom is the most recent title in the Zelda series overall. I'm also not counting remakes as a second appearance of the character, as they're still tied to just the one game. With all that said, let's get into it.
The first Zelda game doesn't have much to choose from in terms of unique characters. Most of the NPCs you meet are generic-looking old men or women. There are some friendly moblins, which is something you never see again as far as I know, but moblins themselves have been in plenty of other Zelda games, so I'm not going to consider that. Instead, we're going to look at the boss enemies. We don't have to go very far to find one that's almost never seen again. The very first boss of the game, Aquamentus. It's funny, you'd think the first boss of the series would get more recognition. Other bosses like King Dodongo, Goma, and Gleeok all got their start here and have been a part of the series ever since. But not Aquamentus. It's a pretty simple design for a boss, admittedly. It's a generic-looking dragon with a horn on his head, and all it can do is spit fireballs at you. Nothing special, but there's a lot of room for improvement. I will note that Aquamentus does show up in Oracle Seasons as its first boss as well, but the entire dungeon is just reused from the NES original. It's the exact same dungeon, which means Aquamentus just fills the exact same role. Because of this, I consider Aquamentus the most forgotten boss in the series, and I would love to see it return as a boss of a new dungeon. The Adventure of Link has a better collection of characters, with towns full of people being introduced. But as far as ones that are never seen again, there's only a handful to pick from. Error and Bagu immediately come to mind. While Error's famous I am Error line gets referenced a lot even outside of the Zelda series, the only other time Bagu shows up is in a comic. That said, I wouldn't classify them as forgettable, as Nintendo frequently references them elsewhere. Even if you haven't played Zelda 2, you probably at least heard of these characters somewhere else. So we're going to talk about another unique boss, but this time one at the very end of the game. Thunderbird is one of the few final bosses of the series that has just never returned. While characters like Ganon, Vati, and even Yuga make repeated appearances, the final boss of the second game never made another appearance. And there's a few good reasons for this. The main reason being it was largely overshadowed by the second final boss of the game, Dark Link, which has also made frequent appearances in the series. The second reason is Thunderbird kind of doesn't actually exist. Like most of the other bosses in the game, Thunderbird is an artificial creation of the King of Hyrule, designed to protect the Triforce of Courage and test Link's strength. While it's totally possible for another King of Hyrule to make a new Thunderbird somewhere down the line, it does not seem very likely as Nintendo's focus is mainly on Ganondorf or new creations for the final bosses. The third reason is, well, there's not a lot of Zelda players that actually even encountered this boss in the first place. The Adventure of Link is notoriously difficult, so much so that even just getting to and completing the first dungeon of the game is a challenge for even veteran players. Zelda 2 also has one of the largest maps in the series, making navigation confusing. The mix of overwhelming difficulty and getting easily lost can deter many players, so I don't blame you if you've never heard of Thunderbird, especially if Nintendo refuses to acknowledge it again. A Link to the Past is where unique characters really start showing up. However, a lot of them are very minor and have no real significance on the gameplay or story. Link's uncle is the first time we see a relative of Link's, and while he doesn't appear in anything ever again, he's not exactly a forgettable character. He's the first character you meet in the game, and his death has spawned a few memes in the community. Link has had other relatives in the series too, most notably his sister Aeril in The Wind Waker. I was thinking about going with Blind the Thief, as I like the idea of pretending to be one of the maidens just to get the drop on Link, but there isn't really much else to talk about for him.
So for this segment, I decided to expand my horizons and look at a different form of media, particularly the Zelda manga series. While it's not canon to the video game series, the manga series details the games in new ways. In the Link to the Past manga, a new character was introduced to help the story along, a thief girl named Ganti.
After initially attacking the carriage Link is riding in, Ganti teams up with Link on their trip to the Eastern Palace. She reveals her parents were killed by the Knights of Hyrule and swears vengeance against them. It just so happens that Link is a descendant of the Knights of Hyrule, which prompts Gante's betrayal, and she flees. The two don't properly see each other again until Link is sent to the Dark World, where Gante reveals herself after being transformed into a fox. Following this, the two stick together, and there's many twists in the story and their relationship. I'm not going to reveal the whole plot of Gante's character here, but I really liked this character, and I know Akira Hamkawa would like to see her return. While Gante has been limited to only the manga so far, it's not entirely out of the question that she could be brought into the Zelda series proper. Zelda producer Eiji Aonuma is a fan of Hamkawa's work, so much so that he based the Rito tribe in The Wind Waker from this one-off bird character at the end of the Ocarina of Time manga. It's also plausible that the thief girl in A Link Between Worlds was based on Gante, and if so, it means Gante hasn't completely left Nintendo's minds. I really debated putting the CGI titles on this list. I didn't think there would be anything noteworthy, but since I'm putting other spin-off titles on this list, it didn't seem right to just exclude the notoriously terrible CDI games. That said, much of the characters in this trio of games are probably better off forgotten about.
Dyras came straight from the crater till I boarded the vent.
Then get my necklace back from Gliok, okay? Pretty please?
Not many left, Link. There's Drulik round the side of Glutko. I may be hideous, but after a year of being frozen, you will beg to join me.
The stars are made of ice. Thus the night is cold. Bring the crystal from Saragon, and I will prove the light of ice penetrates more than fire.
The only one I feel would be even remotely plausible to bring back would be Gwonam, the old wizard Link meets in the Faces of Evil. He's overall a very quirky character and doesn't tend to make a whole lot of sense, but he's unique to only Faces of Evil, and has both gameplay and story relevance, which does qualify him for this video. He's Link's main mode of transportation around the island of Korodai, and frequently gives Link tips on what to do, especially towards how to fight bosses. After finding the Crystal of Vision that allows you to find Gwonam's house, yes, you need a magic crystal to find the house Gwonam is currently living in, despite Gwonam being perfectly capable of taking Link there anyway.
At last, you have the vision to find my house. Now you will see the sand krumis that prevent your approach to Ganon. Go with many blessings.
Did I mention this is a terrible game? Anyway, once in his house, Gwonam gives Link the Lantern of Vision, which allows him to see invisible enemies, similar to the Lens of Truth in Ocarina of Time. I don't think any of us would mind if characters from the CDI titles were just completely forgotten about, a sentiment Nintendo themselves share. But if there was a character to bring back or reference in some way, it'd be Gwonam. Or Morshu. There's plenty of unique characters in Link's Awakening, with some having significant impacts on the story. However, Nintendo seems to be quite fond of Link's Awakening, as characters and locations from it are brought back on a few occasions. Most prominently is Hyrule Warriors, which has Marin as a playable character, Bow Wow as a weapon for Link, Old Man Aurora as a usable item, and even the Nightmares return as obstacles on the map. There aren't many other characters that have a significant enough impact on the game. I was thinking about the bosses, but given the simplicity of the game, none really stood out to me as noteworthy. Yeah, that was the easiest boss fight I've ever had in my life. There was no challenge to this guy at all. But there is one character I found that is somewhat helpful. East of Maeve Village, you'll find a girl named Tracy, more commonly called Crazy Tracy. Her role in this game is very minor, as she'll just heal you, but she can also sell you a vial of secret medicine, which can restore Link's health if he dies. The only other times you can find them is in the final 3 dungeons, which makes getting the secret medicine very useful for the early game. Tracy also doesn't care for ghosts in her house at all. Tracy, help, I have a ghost. There's a ghost following me. I don't know what to do about it. Admittedly, Tracy does show up one other time, in a title called Captain Rainbow. This Japanese-only game is a crossover of sorts between various Nintendo characters, specifically, quote-unquote, forgotten characters. Tracy herself gets a heavy redesign and a completely different objective: the desire to enslave all men in the world.
Yeah, I can see why she's called Crazy Tracy.
You can actually help her with this by pushing Takamaru in her direction. If Tracy being directly called a forgotten character by Nintendo doesn't qualify her for this list, then I don't know what does. With the leap to 3D also comes a leap in writing quality, and with that, many memorable characters. Who can forget about King Zora taking a long time to scoot over, or Darunia's dancing to Saria's song? But we're not here for any of that. For the most forgettable character in Ocarina of Time, one immediately comes to mind. You don't have to go far to find him, as he's blocking your progress at the very beginning of the game. Mido is the self-proclaimed leader of the Kokiri. He won't let you see the Great Deku Tree without first finding a sword and a shield. This is meant to be a progression gate by the game, but to many players, Mido is a hindrance. Later in the game, he blocks your progress to the Forest Temple until you play Saria's song for him. I know Mido is a bit of an odd choice for this list, since he's hardly forgettable for most players, but to Nintendo, he's a complete unknown. Mido doesn't appear anywhere else, both within and outside of the Zelda series. No counterpart in Majora's Mask, no core arc named after him, no trophy, sticker, or spirit in the Super Smash Bros. Series, no reference in Hyrule Warriors, nothing. Mido's character is completely unique to Ocarina of Time. There's a town named Mido in Zelda II, and a swamp named Mido Swamp in Breath of the Wild, which, going with the Zelda timeline, would be named after Mido, but that's not Mido himself. Despite how impactful Mido is to players starting Ocarina of Time, he's just completely ignored in the series, which kind of sucks because there's definitely room for him to grow. The Ocarina of Time manga shows him with a growing character arc, which is as much attention as he's gotten. He wasn't a bad kid, just overprotective, something he apologizes for when you meet him again in the Lost Woods. I'm sure he can be one of Link's most loyal friends if he's given another chance. Ocarina of Time's sequel, Majora's Mask, is a little bit more difficult to narrow down one character. Many of the characters are based on those from Ocarina of Time, and while Majora's Mask has its share of new characters like Tingle, there's only a handful of characters that fit the criteria I'm looking for. I wasn't considering characters like Cremia, for example, as they are directly based on a previous character. Now, there are a lot of unique characters otherwise that would fit the bill if we were only considering just the main Zelda titles. But Hyrule Warriors becomes a bit of a hindrance here. Kafei, Uldowa, and Kamaru have wearable masks for Sheik, Ganondorf, and Girahim respectively, and Darmani and Lulu are costumes for Darunia and Ruto respectively. Even Captain Kita makes an appearance in some battle scenarios, and the 4 giants are the major items you're trying to collect on the Termina map. Hyrule Warriors does limit our pool of characters a bit, but I'm not completely left with nothing. Eagles du Ukana, the undead king of Ikana Kingdom, was an option, but I'm going to give the spotlight to Mikau. You find Mikau dying off the Great Bay Coast and have to push him to shore. Upon doing so, he gives you one last song before passing away and leaving behind the Zora mask. That's the most interaction we get from this guy. Prior to all this, he's learned Lulu's eggs were stolen by the Gerudo, so he went to get them back, but was wounded in his mission. Prior to all of that, he was the lead guitarist of the Indigo Goes, which is a Zora music band. Despite being a focus point of Link's story in Majora's Mask, Mikau is never brought up again anywhere. I'd love to see more of both him and Darmani, perhaps in some standalone prequel story to the events of Majora's Mask. We have 2 Zelda games to talk about now, Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. While they each have their own unique cast of characters, none are perhaps as mysterious and impactful as the final bosses of the game, General Onyx from Seasons and Buran from Ages. Both of them are actually in service to Twinrova, working to bring back Ganon from the dead. While both have the same goal, they handle things very differently. Onyx is set to capture Din, the Oracle of Seasons, and does so by submersing the Temple of Seasons, throwing the Seasons of Holodrum into chaos. Onyx isn't very present through most of the story, with him only appearing at the very start and very end of the game, but he's a powerful opponent, with his true form being that of a large dragon. Buran is a powerful sorceress, able to possess people's bodies. She uses this ability to take control of Nehru, the Oracle of Ages, and a few other characters. Unlike Onyx, Buran is present through most of the game, frequently manipulating events to bring sorrow to the land of Labrina. Her battle involves her changing forms, with her true form being an evil fairy. While the Oracle games are some favorites among Zelda fans, their development by Capcom may be what's holding back further appearances. The only other times we see reoccurring characters Din, Nehru, Faror, Vati, and the Force Sword are in games developed by or in association with Capcom. Because of this, Nintendo may be a bit hesitant to plan for these characters. It's a similar situation to Geno in Super Mario RPG, as the only other times we see him are when Square Enix is involved. But I'd like to see the Oracle characters get another shot in the series, maybe even with that 3rd game based on Faror one day. Four Swords has almost no unique characters at all. It introduced Vati to the series, but as much as I'd love to talk about him, he doesn't qualify for this list. I was initially going to talk about the Great Fairies you feed rupees to, but apparently in the Anniversary edition of the game, they transform into the Great Fairies from Ocarina of Time, which completely invalidates them for this video. Great, wonderful. So if the good guys don't make the list anymore, we turn to the bad guys. And there's only really 2 to pick from for this list. The slug guy, Darazol, and the fire guy, Guin. The 3rd boss is an iteration of Manhandla. Personally, I had more fun fighting Darazol. Okay, red.
Purple.
Julia, attack it, Julia.
It's blue.
That's purple.
Oh, wait, Julia, attack the bottom one. Attack the bottom one.
Huh?
Yeah, Julia, attack bottom. Just the bottom. Oh, no.
I did.
This thing
I think it's supposed to be the corresponding color.
Okay, there we go. So yeah, Julia, just attack the bottom one.
purple. I see purple.
Purple,
I see blue.
Purple what side?
I see London. I see
On the
France.
left. Oh, I'm sorry. I see purple on the left.
The bosses in this game are built specifically for multiplayer, which is mainly why they never show up again, even in Four Swords Adventures or Triforce Heroes. Even if we did get a new multiplayer Zelda, Nintendo will likely make up new bosses to put new mechanics to the list. So, oh well, rest in purple. Wind Waker has some of my favorite characters in the series. Everyone is expressive and well written. I enjoy just looking at a majority of them. The bosses are also some of my favorites. I really like playing this game. But when it comes to unique characters we never see again, Wind Waker only has a small pool to pick from. All of Tetra's pirates return in Phantom Hourglass and other cameos, Medley is playable in Hyrule Warriors, Makar is a sticker in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and many characters return in the Japanese exclusive 4-player Navi-Trackers mode in Four Swords Adventures. Picking a unique character with relevance was actually a little difficult here, but ultimately, I settled on Jabon. When you're looking for Nehru's Pearl, you're guided to the backside of Outset Island, where Jabon is hiding. In a first playthrough, Jabon speaks entirely in Hylian. While this can be directly translated, a second playthrough after beating the game will allow us to understand Jabon. Initially, Jabon resided in Greatfish Isle, but when Jabon sensed Ganondorf approaching, he fled to Outset to hide. Jabon is well aware of who the King of Red Lions is and is initially hesitant to give Link the Pearl, but soon trusts them both and grants Link what he needs to access the Tower of the Gods. Beyond this, we don't get much more about Jabon. It's possible Greatfish Isle was going to have more content and Jabon was moved to Outset for either time constraints or story purposes, but I can't find anything that really confirms that. Jabon is also depicted as a descendant of Jabu Jabu in the Hyrule Historia, but this isn't solidified with any in-game material. However, Jabon's translated text does show us that he is aware of both the Hero of Time and Zelda's disappearances. In other words, there's a lot about Jabon we don't know about, and I would love to have that information should he ever return to the Great Sea. Four Swords Adventures has a decently sized cast of unique characters. Most of them are found in the village of the Blue Maiden. However, a lot of them go completely unnamed and don't hold a lot of relevance outside of just being in your way. Most of the bosses are reused from Wind Waker or Isvati. The only truly unique boss in the game is Froststare, which is cool, but there's not much to say about him. So I'll go with the central objective of the game. The girls you need to rescue, the Maidens. Now, the Maidens are also in A Link to the Past, with Four Swords Adventures putting them in a similar distressed situation. However, the two sets of Maidens appear to be unrelated and have different objectives, as A Link to the Past Maidens were there to seal Ganondorf and prevent him from returning, while those in Four Swords Adventures watch over the Four Sword and prevent Vati from returning. They're functionally similar, yes, but they're definitely meant to be different characters, especially considering they appear in two different parts of the timeline. In Four Swords Adventures, each Maiden also watches over a specific part of Hyrule. Blue Maiden watches Eastern Hyrule, Yellow Maiden watches Death Mountain, and so on. While they have a heavy influence on the story of Hyrule, this is sadly the last time we see this group of ladies. A Link to the Past's sequel, A Link Between Worlds, has a different cast of characters to rescue, though Ceres does bear a resemblance to the previous Maidens. The next and last time we see the Four Sword is in Minish Cap, which doesn't involve the Maidens at all. Zelda games have always had things to collect or people to rescue in order to progress the story. I feel like the Maidens have some untapped power they haven't been able to properly show off, so I'd love for Nintendo to bring them back and show us their true potential. For the Minish Cap, I immediately knew who I wanted to talk about here. A cast of characters I've been wanting to know more ever since I did my 3-heart challenge a decade ago, the Blade Brothers.
By the way, I've been making YouTube content for 10 years now. I'm planning new videos and streams to celebrate it, so definitely subscribe, especially if you've made it this far in the video. I've been improving.
Anyway, the Blade Brothers are 8 experienced sword fighters Link can find throughout Hyrule to teach him new skills. The first one you meet, Swift Blade in Hyrule Castletown, is the only required member you need to talk to. The rest of the skills are useful but optional. The lore behind these guys makes them out to be some kind of legend in their own right, having been entirely self-trained and was able to use their skills to win the tournament of a previous Pokori festival. They also all have the ability to take control of Link's body directly and show him the skills being taught. They may just be intended to teach Link new skills from a gameplay perspective, but the Blade Brothers definitely have an interesting background. From this point, the only other character to directly teach Link new skills is the hero Shade in Twilight Princess. Any other skills Link learns from then on, he just kinda picks up or is granted magical powers without any kind of training. I love the idea of Link learning new skills from experienced fighters, so even if it's not the Blade Brothers, please give Link some mentors in a future game. Twilight Princess has an expansive cast of characters. We have the fan favorites like Midna, Zant, Telma, and many more. Just about every named character has some vital role in the story, even if they're just the ones being captured to set Link off. And a lot of these characters also appear in Super Smash Bros. Or Hyrule Warriors in some form, which is great. So I'm going to make an exception here and talk about a character I personally want to see return, because it would open up the door for a potential Twilight Princess sequel. Not like Link's crossbow training, which has absolutely no unique characters in it at all, but a proper adventure game. And that character is Cullen. The only other time Cullen appears anywhere is as a sticker in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. That has been disqualifying any other character with the same situation, but hear me out on this one. Cullen is someone who looks up to Link and wants to be brave and strong like him. At first, Cullen isn't too sure of himself, but when King Bulblin attacks Kakariko Village, Cullen steps in to save Beth, getting captured himself. Cullen uses this experience to encourage himself to get stronger, so he can protect other people like Link and Cullen's father Russell do. Cullen doesn't do much in the second half of the game, but during the credits sequence, Cullen is shown wielding his own sword and shield, something he was initially against doing at the start of the game. Nintendo has the opportunity here to make a new Twilight Princess Zelda game that doesn't even need Link to be the central character. Just progress the time period by a few years, add a new threat, and Cullen will step in to become the hero he wants to be. There was going to be a proper sequel to Twilight Princess before it got retooled into Link's crossbow training, so making Cullen the star would give us the sequel we've been wanting for so long, and would also allow Twilight Princess other unique characters to have another appearance. Tingle is hardly a single game exclusive character, but he is certainly unique. So much so that he proved popular enough to get his own set of video games. Many of these characters only appear in this series with only a few exceptions. I'm not too familiar with this series as they never released here in America, but they play very differently from the standard Zelda titles, which means the characters involved get their own roles and abilities, and are also just as weird as Tingle. The one that stood up the most to me with the best chance at being seen again is a young fighter girl named Abba. I say she has the best chance of returning because she's the only Hylian in the series, despite Hyrule not being the setting for Tingle's adventures. Abba is the one that teaches Tingle how to fight, including some advanced techniques later on, and has a rather interesting story of her own. She was raised in the forest by an old hero named Junglo. However, Abba overhears that Junglo is not actually her father and gets upset, throwing her dagger and running off. Tingle takes the dagger to the armorer, who reveals he's actually Abba's father. After the two get into an argument, Abba bids farewell to Junglo and leaves with her proper dad. It's an interesting story with room to expand further. Abba being a Hylian means if Nintendo decides to acknowledge the Tingle series again, she has the best chance of being in a proper Zelda game. And being a fighter, she'd fit right into whatever conflict she's thrown into. But any other Tingle series character would also probably fit, just as long as Tingle doesn't try to date any of them. Phantom Hourglass is not a game I hear talked about too often, I feel. It's not the greatest Zelda, sure, it can be a little awkward and clunky, but it was my first DS game and I personally enjoyed it. There's a number of unique characters here, most notable of which is Link's traveling companion, Linebeck, who appears as a spirit training event in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Oh well. The next major characters in the game are Oshus, the old man that starts Link on his quest, and Bellum, the game's central antagonist. The two are pretty closely tied together, as Oshus is actually the deity of this world, and the creator of the Phantom Hourglass, while Bellum feeds on the life force of those in this world. These two central characters are never referred to again, and there's probably a reason for that. It's not exactly clear if they were even real.
Spoiler alert for new Phantom Hourglass players, but the world you're in here may be similar to Koholint Island in Link's Awakening. Spoiler alert for that too, even though I just talked about it.
It's not entirely clear, but Phantom Hourglass may have taken place entirely in a dream world. We never see or hear about this world of the Ocean King again, and upon beating the game, Tetra's crew says they've only been gone 10 minutes, opposed to the many days Link spent in his adventure. However, the end of the game shows Linebeck definitely exists now, and Linebeck's grandson is even in the next game. Speaking of, let's talk about Spirit Tracks. Linebeck the First may not have qualified, but his grandson, Linebeck the Third, sure does. In Hyrule Warriors' Grand Travel map, it is specifically Linebeck the Third that runs the trading post you can get food from. You can tell by the hat. Oh well. I'd also like to talk about major antagonists Burn and Malladus, but they both appear in Super Smash Bros. In some form. Chancellor Cole doesn't make another appearance, but I don't like him, so I'm going with someone else. The main supporting tribe of characters in Spirit Tracks are the Locomo, who protect the land of New Hyrule, the Spirit Tracks, and temples within it, and make sure Malladus stays locked up. Angine, the leader and most frequently visited member of the Locomo, does have a trophy in Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS, but the other characters don't make another appearance, so this is more for the tribe as a whole. Locomo appear to be chosen to help the land of New Hyrule, a role that you can either accept or deny. Burn was previously part of the Locomo and was Angine's apprentice before turning on her. They are also gifted musicians, how do I say this word? They are also gifted musicians and are apparently capable of reincarnation. Outside of Angene's Smash Bros. Trophy, the Locomo aren't really brought up again. The Locomo sword they create for Link does appear in Hyrule Warriors as a weapon for Toon Link, but that's the closest we got for right now. Spirit Tracks marks the end of the adult timeline currently, but should another game be made in relation to Spirit Tracks or even the Wind Waker or Phantom Hourglass, I'd love to get more story for the Locomo. Skyward Sword has a memorable cast of characters. There's Groose, the Skull Bully, Girahim, the Sword Bully, and Impa, the Link Bully. Most of the major characters appear in other places, Girahim, for example, being a playable character in Hyrule Warriors. For this segment, there's not one specific character I want to talk about, but rather 3 different species of characters. The Kikwis and Parellas of Faron Woods, and the Mogmas of Elden Volcano. These are different races Link will encounter throughout the adventure, all of which offering either advice or progression items. They're referenced to be a part of the ancient battle prior to the events of the game, but after the game, they're just not there. Skyward Sword is set at the very beginning of the Zelda timeline, detailing the creation of Hyrule, the royal family, and the Master Sword. Yet these 3 species of characters are never seen again in any other game. The Parella were originally meant to be Zoras, so I guess you could say they evolved somewhere down the line, but there's no evidence of that. Who are these guys? Where did they go? Where did they come from? Cotton Eye Joe. A Link Between Worlds takes place a long time after A Link to the Past, which means we have an entirely new cast of characters to choose from. The obvious choices are the game's central low-roll counterparts, Ravio and Princess Hilda, but Ravio is playable in Hyrule Warriors, and Hilda is a spirit in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The 7 sages are completely unique characters this time around, but they all appear in Yuga's victory screen in the Hyrule Warriors, so dang it. While the major characters aren't someone I can go into depth here, we're not completely left with nothing. One character in the game may not have a lot of story or gameplay relevance, but he definitely has a story of his own to tell. In Kakariko Village, there's an old guy simply called Gramps. Gramps runs the Street Pass Meadow, which is a side game where you fight Shadow Links based on the other players you Street Pass that also had a Link Between Worlds. Please bring back Street Pass, Nintendo, it was really cool. After fighting 50 Street Pass battles, Gramps himself will challenge Link to a duel, and he is an absolute beast. He has most of Link's items, including the Master Sword. In Hero Mode, Gramps can power himself up with a purple potion and deal a whopping 32 hearts of damage. Gramps is said to be 80 years old, yet is capable of doing one-fingered handstands, and is incredibly agile. While he was meant to be the game's super boss, the lore Nintendo gave him implies there's more to this guy. And what do you get for beating Gramps? 5 rupees. That's like a randomizer level of a troll reward. I've mentioned a few times in this video the impact Hyrule Warriors has had when it came to choosing characters. Many possible candidates to talk about were disqualified due to them appearing in some form in Hyrule Warriors. But now it's time to talk about the unique characters of Hyrule Warriors itself, of which there are 5. They are all tied to each other and are great characters, so I'm talking about all of them here because this is my video and I can break the rules if I want to. Lana and Sia are both the Guardian of Time, originally just one person. Her role was to watch over the Triforce, watching over it and the battles Link and Zelda faced across the ages. Sia grew to have feelings for Link, but was not able to act on them as it would separate him from his connection to Zelda, resulting in jealousy. Ganondorf took this as an opening, corrupting Sia and darkening her soul. The good in her was separated, materialized into the character Lana. While Lana groups up with the heroes to try and restore things, Sia marches with dark forces to claim the Triforce and Link for herself. She has a bit of a problem. 2 of these soldiers are commanders in her army, Wizro and Volga. Lana and Sia aren't revealed to be the same person until later in the story when the time periods clash, but after long and hard-fought battles, everything turns out fine in the end. That is, until Ganondorf shows up, having used Sia to put his soul back together. During this whole ordeal, a new hero steps into play, a young farm girl named Linkle. Believing herself to be the spirit of the hero reincarnated, she makes her way to Hyrule Castle, getting hopelessly lost, somehow ending up in every other time period involved. Despite there being another Hyrule Warriors title and another on the way, these characters are never referenced again, not even as spirits in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, even though characters from Age of Calamity do. I personally voted for Lana to be a playable fighter back in the Smash Ballot days, but we didn't get anything at all. Hyrule Warriors, specifically the Definitive Edition, is my favorite not Zelda title, and I'd love to see these characters return. But the characters may just be in a similar situation as Onyx, Varan, and Vati, where they're tied up in licensing, in this case being Koei Tecmo. Maybe that means we have a better chance of seeing them in Dead or Alive. Triforce Heroes is, not exactly the greatest Zelda game. It can be fun with friends, but not so much when doing anything else. In terms of unique characters, Triforce Heroes only has a few to choose from, and I'm going with the central damsel in distress, Princess Styla of the Kingdom Hytopia. In this game, Styla is cursed to wear the most drab outfit because a witch despised Styla for her fashion sense. Wow, this sounds like a bad TikTok trend. To fix this problem, Styla's father, King Tuft, wants heroes to venture into the Drablands, yes that's the name, and defeat the witch so the irremovable outfit can be removed. While Styla herself doesn't really do much, her existence introduces an interesting aspect of the series, a princess other than Zelda. Link doesn't go to other locations very often, and when he does, there's never usually a princess or royal family there. The only other time I can think of is Queen Ambi in Oracle of Ages. Other princesses do exist, sure, but are usually still in Hyrule or have some connection to Zelda. Styla is an anomaly in the series where she's both a non-Zelda and non-Hylian princess. I'd love for Link to travel to other worlds either as a summoned hero or just stumbling onto the problem. Just make the problem something other than a magical Karen. When Tears of the Kingdom released, Breath of the Wild players immediately noticed someone was missing. There are plenty of new and interesting characters introduced in Breath of the Wild, but one fan favorite just did not come back in the sequel, that being Cass. Cass is a Rito who travels the Kingdom of Hyrule, sharing with Link both details of the surroundings, stories of legend, and songs he created. Cass has met many times and has several quests of his own, most relating to opening up a shrine. Though Cass may not be central to the game's plot, he's a lovable character who charmed many players with his personality. So, why did he not come back? His family is still around in Tears of the Kingdom. His wife and 5 daughters are hanging around Rito Village just waiting for Cass's return. Tears of the Kingdom makes no mention of Cass at all. The closest we get are his daughters saying Papa talked about the Stormwind arc, and new character Pen recalls that a famous bard studied songs at Wash's Bluff. That's it. As it turns out, Cass isn't just flying around playing songs for the fun of it. Cass had a teacher called the Court Poet, who was around when the Great Calamity struck. The poet sought out ancient songs about the hero who previously defeated Ganon, so they could be passed down to Link when he wakes up. But the poet passed first, sharing his songs with Cass so he could pass them to Link instead. Cass is now on a personal mission to teach Link these songs, ultimately finishing a song his teacher never finished about the champions, dubbed the Champions Ballad. I guess with his mission completed, Cass just left? His fate is not clear, and it's very weird why such a well-liked character didn't return in Tears of the Kingdom. We're not likely to see him in Age of Imprisonment, as that takes place at this Hyrule's creation, but even if we don't see Cass again, we would all like to know what happened to him. Is he out there somewhere, still creating music? Did he fall through a time portal like Zelda, and that's how we see him in Age of Imprisonment? Did he get hunted down and cooked to perfection? The world may never know. Cadence of Hyrule is a crossover game between Crypt of the Necrodancer and The Legend of Zelda. Crypt of the Necrodancer is a roguelike adventure game set to the rhythm of music to defeat enemies and traverse dungeons. It's really more of a Necrodancer game than a Zelda one, it just has Zelda themes and characters. But it still makes this list like any other title.
There are a few unique characters in this game, though as far as Zelda characters, there's not many that really meet the criteria. And I can't really tell which original characters are from the Necrodancer series or are unique to this game. So instead, I will just say that I would love to see more Zelda crossovers like this.
The Zelda series doesn't tend to cross with other series outside of Super Smash Bros. Very often, the most notable being Link in Soul Calibur 2 and Mario Kart 8. It would open up the door for Zelda players to be interested in other series, or for players of those series to try out The Legend of Zelda. You don't need to make it a main title or anything, but a special event like, I don't know, Link and Zelda playing tennis with Marth and Roy or something. Just something fun and dumb. Crypt of the Necrodancer is an indie title, they didn't have any connections to Nintendo, and they still made it work. So what's stopping others? We arrive at our last game, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I was initially going to talk about the tiny guardian Terrico, but he's a spirit in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, unlike a certain other Hyrule Warriors character. Actually, Terrico might be the reason why Cass wasn't in Tears of the Kingdom. Age of Calamity takes place during the Great Calamity, something Terrico went back in time to prevent. He's successful, which means Link never gets put back to sleep, the Grand Poet doesn't have a reason to teach Link anything, which means Cass doesn't have a purpose.
Terrico royally screwed things up.
Age of Calamity doesn't introduce as many unique characters as the previous Hyrule Warriors did. Outside of Terrico, the only other unique characters are main villain Astor and Koga's right-hand man, Suga. Suga is a downloadable playable fighter and a far better character than Astor is, so I'll go with him. Suga frequently fights against Link and Zelda, his primary goal being to assassinate Zelda. He's initially skeptical of Astor, not believing that something as powerful as Calamity Ganon can be controlled. The two butt heads a few times, with Astor threatening to keep Koga and Suga in line. Eventually, Astor turns on the Yiga clan, resulting in Koga and Suga fighting for their lives. Suga falls by the Blight Ganons, causing Koga to swallow his pride and ask for help from Link and Zelda. Suga is heavily implied to have died at this point, but hey, people have come back from the dead before. If Link isn't using the revival spring this time around, I'm sure Suga could use it. Like with the previous Hyrule Warriors characters, Suga could be tied up in some legality issues, which is why we don't hear anything about him in Tears of the Kingdom. I'd also like to see more of this new timeline Tergo created, with the younger Impa, definitely alive champions, and a Hyrule that hasn't fallen into ruin. I think I'd like to explore that story now, but Nintendo seems to have moved on from Breath of the Wild and is instead focusing on Tears of the Kingdom content, which is understandable, considering Age of Calamity essentially erased Breath of the Wild from the timeline.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching this video, I really appreciate it. If you took the time to reach the end of the video, do check out the social links down below. I have my Discord, I have my Twitch. I've also been streaming on YouTube as well at the same time as Twitch. I got multi-streaming functioning, so I've been streaming quite a bit here on YouTube. You can check it out on the live tab here on my channel. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, we're coming up to 10 years of YouTube content. That seems like a long time. I know it doesn't seem like I have a whole lot of numbers to show for that, so definitely subscribe if you like the video. And check me out in October when I have another video coming out to celebrate the 10 years of content that I've been making, going over the last decade of what I've been doing. Until next time, thank you all for watching. My name is Alex. I'll see you around.
May the light shine upon you for all time.